What is up, you guys? It is your girl China, aka China Wine, and welcome to my cast. So today we're gonna be seeing why are you single, okay? And this is a pick a card, so obviously you gotta pick a card. So for group 1, you have deceit. Group 2, we have vision. And group 3, we have differences. Okay? So you guys are going to pick your card, and then when you do, you're going to go to your video in the description, which is group 1, 2, or 3, but it'll also be in the info cards up here, and yeah, I will see you there. What is up, my group 1s? If you guys chose deceit, then congratulations, you have found your group. Okay, and we're just going to get into why you are single. So first we have the Muse of Emotions, clarified by the Queen of Emotions. Okay, so we're very emotional. Gotcha. With deceit, it's giving like you all might have had a really nasty relationship once upon a time, or rather a really nasty breakup once upon a time, where it's like the promises of that this person made were just to get you in, like just to reel you in. Or maybe not even just that. Maybe throughout the entire relationship, it's like this person constantly made empty promises to which that they could fulfill but just did not fulfill. And then we have the Wheel here, clarified by the Six of Emotions. So once again, there's just a lot of energy revolving around the past. And it's also like you tend to see this past person in every future prospect. So every time you try to get into a relationship, you're like, oh, checking off the red flags of the past person onto the new people. But there's also an emphasis on like you being your own shoulder to cry on. So like with this, it's like you literally lean on yourself, and you haven't found anybody that will go through the motions with you, or that like can validate your emotions. And it's not that you're in need of validation or begging for validation, but it's like, why would I get with somebody who doesn't see my emotions and doesn't empathize with me? I might as well just be by myself. Like, I might as well do this alone like I've been doing. And then we have the Nine of Voices here, clarified by the Eight of Emotions. And you all are super anxious people, super skittish, but not skittish like you're scary per se. It's more so skittish like paranoid. So it's like you're constantly observing people. You're constantly like fact checking, and you have it really bad where you take people's word for what it is without giving them any leeway now because of what was done in the past. Like if somebody says they're gonna, like, I don't know, buy you a milkshake and and say they forget, or it just never happens, you're like, oh well, I know not to trust that person then. Like, it's stuff that's like really simple, but all of this you take to heart because, like I said, you were deceived in the past, by somebody who just never fulfilled their promises. And then on the bottom of the deck, we have the Ace of Voices and the Seven of Inspiration. And this is another thing that just is like, I can do bad all by myself, basically. But it's more like you do better by yourself. You're like, I don't have time to just be constantly paranoid, constantly worried about somebody else's whereabouts, worried about somebody else's mental health when they're not really as worried about mine. And it's like you refuse to stay at the level of like relationships that you've experienced. You're like, you want something way more mature, way more loving, like you refuse to just get with somebody because you're lonely. You're like, well, I've been lonely in a relationship, and you're like, I'd much rather be lonely by myself. Like, it's just not worth it. And let's look at some Oracle. So we have beauty. And one thing about it is like you don't regret being single. Like you're not like just out there thirsty for a person to love you. You're learning self-love, and you're learning to like just being by yourself, taking yourself out on dates, prioritizing your mental health and your emotions, and also doing better with boundaries as far as, you know, cutting people off, not wasting people's time and not wasting your own time. So if like somebody tries to talk to you and you already know like you're not interested, or maybe you see it through for a little while and you decide, yeah, we're just not meant to be, like we're not compatible, you tell them immediately. You're like, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. There's no reason to just fake the funk. Like I just it's not giving, you know. And then we have rigid. This is kind of the skittishness that I was mentioning before. And it's like a lot of this might not even stem just from past relationships or a past relationship. It could also stem from like how you were raised, as far as having trust issues, or as far as somebody going out of their way to make you anxious about like their safety or about how they feel. Somebody that's just very passive aggressive. Like I see you have that kind of history with somebody, whether it's a relationship or it's family or somebody that's close to you. So it's like that's why you're so adamant about communication, about vulnerability, because you're like, before, people have always made you wonder, and that makes you extremely anxious, and it also makes you feel unsafe to share your feelings, and you have a lot of them. You're like, if somebody can be honest with me and vulnerable with me, how can I possibly feel safe to be vulnerable with you, and I don't even know who you are? And that's comes back to deceit, where it's like you thought you knew somebody, but because they were never actually vulnerable with you, you realize that, hey, I don't know who you are at all. And then we have invisible. Yeah, so it's like when people, they just make you feel invisible because it's so like surface level. It's so, what is the word I'm looking for? What is the word The word I'm looking for is not basic or like facade, but we're gonna go with those two because I can't think of the word. But yeah, so it's like so basic. You're like, that's not what a relationship should be built on. If that was the case, I could just be friends. You know, like it's no use in me feeling, I keep saying it, the same amount of loneliness I could feel if I was just by myself. It's like you're constantly having to talk to yourself, which is a good thing. Everybody's supposed to talk to themselves, but it's like in situations where you would want to communicate with your person, it's like you find yourself only communicating by yourself and having to guess their part, because it's like others are really unwilling for whatever reason. On the bottom of the deck, we have choices and fulfillment. Bottom line is, you have choices and you're aware of that. So you're like, there's no shortage of people in this world. And you all are actually, despite being paranoid and very anxious about relationships, you're also pretty optimistic, because you're like, I know like eventually a time will come where my person will find me, or I will find my person, and it'll just feel right. But the bottom line is that you're not stooping to any level just to be loved. You're not lowering your standards. If anything, you've been like constantly raising your standards as you come to love yourself more and come to know yourself more and be aware of what it is you want exactly. And you know, and then we have movement in the middle here. And it's like you might have some people that are like, oh, like your standards are way too high, or oh, you need to go out and do this and this to attract more attention. And you're like, nah, I don't think I need to do all that, or I don't think it's necessary to lower my standards, because why would I choose to be unhappy with somebody instead of just waiting till the right person comes? Okay, and then we also have I Am Callie from Death Comes Rebirth. Yeah, so you've been through a bunch of like renewals, like I was saying, whether it be from a bad breakup, a bad relationship in general, or just a bad upbringing. You all know what it feels like to start over from scratch. So you're not afraid of, you know, the whole dating or the whole getting to know somebody, because you're like, it's clear you can be with somebody for X amount of years and still not know them at all. And then we have Poe. Time for change, to learn something new, to use technology and gadgets with wisdom. Usually I would take this as like, oh, some of you all are online dating, but I'm actually going to take this as some of you are actually over online dating. That might have been your choice of how to meet new people before, but now I'm just getting that you're absolutely over it when it comes to use technology and gadgets with wisdom. It's like now you're like, I'm not even gonna do that. You're like, I meet nobody of substance on these apps, so I need to just delete them. So it's like you've since deleted these dating apps off of your phone, and you're now just waiting for authentic moments of you just going out and having a good time with friends, or even just by yourself, and somebody will talk to you. Like you're like, I just need things in reality. Like I'm not trying to deal with stuff online. Some of y'all like, I'm getting too old, even if you're like young. And at the bottom of the deck we have Witch at the end of the world, an important end, a new beginning. This is what I was saying about you not being afraid to start over. And then we have Dried Flower Fairy, sweet memories. For you, you all are not at all bitter about anything that's happened in your past. It was a slap in the face at first, but now you're just like, it is what it is. There were good moments, and you're like, but thankfully it's taught me a lot since then, and then you're doing much better. So you're like, it's no reason to be bitter over what was. So in conclusion, you're single because, well, you're single and ready to mingle, but you're not ready to mingle with just anybody lame. Like, you don't want a scrub, basically. And you're not going to settle for a scrub. So, yeah, that's why y'all are single. So when somebody, asks you that, you need to be like, look, not too much. I'm single because I know what I'm working with, what I'm bringing to the table, okay? But that is all that I have for you today. My group ones. If you're going to pick another group, I will see you there. If not, like if you want to, comment if you want to, subscribe if you want to, maybe even share. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.